Day 23 Patriarchs, Genesis 43 through 44, Job 35 through 36, Proverbs 4 verses 10 through 19. Let's begin. Genesis 43:44. Meanwhile, the famine pressed heavily on all the land. And having consumed the provisions that they had brought out of Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Return and buy us a little food." Judah answered, "The man himself declared to us, under the attestation of an oath, saying, 'You will not see my face, unless you bring your youngest brother with you.' If therefore you are willing to send him with us, we will travel together, and we will buy necessities for you. But if you are not willing, we will not go. For the man, as we have often said, declared to us, saying, 'You will not see my face without your youngest brother.' Israel said to them, 'You have done this for my misery, in that you revealed to him that you also had another brother.' But they responded, 'The man questioned us in order, concerning our family, whether our father lived, if we had a brother. And we answered him respectively, according to what he demanded. How could we know that he would say, 'Bring your brother with you'?' Likewise, Judah said to his father, 'Send the boy with me, so that we may set out and be able to live, lest we and our little ones should die. I accept the boy, require him at my hand. Unless I lead him back and restore him to you, I will be guilty of a sin against you for all time. If a delay had not intervened, by now we would have returned here a second time.' Therefore, their father Israel said to them, 'If it is necessary to do so, then do what you will. Take, in your vessels, from the best fruits of the land, and carry down gifts to the man, a little resin, and honey, and storax ointment, oil of myrrh, turpentine, and almonds. Also, take with you double the money, and carry back what you found in your sacks, lest perhaps it was done in error. But also take your brother, and go to the man. Then may my Almighty God cause him to be pleased by you. And send your brother, whom he holds, back with you, along with this one Benjamin. But as for me, without my children, I will be like one who is bereaved.' Therefore, the men took the gifts, and double the money, and Benjamin. And they went down into Egypt, and they stood in the presence of Joseph. And when he had seen them and Benjamin together, he instructed the steward of his house, saying, 'Lead the men into the house, and kill victims, and prepare a feast, because they will be eating with me at midday.' He did what he had been ordered to do, and he brought the men into the house. And there, being terrified, they said one to another, 'Because of the money, which we carried back the first time in our sacks, we have been brought in, so that he may unleash a false accusation against us, and by violence subjugate both us and our donkeys into servitude.' For this reason, approaching the steward of the house at his door, they said, 'We beg you, Lord, to hear us. We came down once before to buy food. And having bought it, when we arrived at the inn, we opened our sacks and found the money in the mouths of the sacks, which we now have carried back in the same amount. But we have also brought other silver, so that we may buy those things that are necessary for us. It is not on our conscience who had placed it in our bags.' But he responded, 'Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your God, and the God of your father, has given you the treasure in your sacks. As for the money that you gave to me, I held it as a test.' And he led Simeon out to them. And having led them into the house, he brought water, and they washed their feet, and he gave fodder to their donkeys. But they also prepared the gifts, until Joseph entered at midday. For they had heard that they would eat bread there. And so Joseph entered his house, and they offered him the gifts, holding them in their hands. And they reverenced prone on the ground. But he, gently greeting them again, questioned them, saying, 'Is your father, the old man about whom you spoke to me, in good health? Is he still alive?' And they answered, 'Your servant, our father, is safe, he is still alive.' And bowing, they reverenced him. Then Joseph, lifting up his eyes, saw Benjamin, his brother of the same womb, and he said, 'Is this your little brother, about whom you spoke to me?' And again he said, 'May God be compassionate to you, my son.' And he hurried out, because his heart had been moved over his brother, and tears gushed out. And going into his chamber he wept. And when he had washed his face, coming out again, he composed himself, and he said, 'Set out bread.' And when it was set out, separately for Joseph, and separately for his brothers, likewise separately for the Egyptians, who ate at the same time, for it is unlawful for Egyptians to eat with Hebrews, and they consider feasting in this way to be profane. They sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his state of life. And they wondered exceedingly, taking the portions that they received from him. And the greater portion went to Benjamin, so much so that it exceeded 5 parts. And they drank and became inebriated along with him. Then Joseph instructed the steward of his house, saying, Fill their sacks with grain, as much as they are able to hold. And place each one's money at the top of the sack. But place my silver bowl, and the price that he gave for the wheat, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest. And so it was done. And when morning arose, they were sent away with their donkeys. And now they had departed from the city and had set out a short distance. Then Joseph, sending for the steward of his house, said, Rise up and pursue the men. And when you have overtaken them, say, Why have you returned evil for good? The cup that you have stolen, it is that from which my Lord drinks, and in which he is accustomed to discern signs. You have done a very sinful thing. He did as he had been ordered. And having overtaken them, he spoke to them according to the order. And they responded, Why does our Lord speak in this way, as though your servants had committed such a shameful act? The money, which we found at the top of our sacks, we carried back to you from the land of Canaan. So in what way does it follow that we would steal, from the house of your Lord, gold or silver? Whichever of your servants will be found to have what you seek, may he die, and we shall be the servants of my Lord. And he said to them, Let it be according to your verdict. With whomever it will be found, let him be my servant, but you will be unharmed. And so, they quickly placed their sacks down to the ground, and each one was opened. And when he had searched, beginning with the oldest, all the way to the youngest, he found the cup in Benjamin's sack. But they, tearing their garments and burdening their donkeys again, returned to the town. And Judah, first among his brothers, entered to Joseph, for he had not yet departed from the place, and together they all fell down before him to the ground. And he said to them, Why would you choose to act in this way? Could you be ignorant that there is no one like me in the knowledge of discerning signs? And Judah said to him, What could we answer to my Lord? And what would we be able to say, or to justly claim? God has discovered the iniquity of your servants. See, we have all become servants to my Lord, both we, and he with whom the cup was found. Joseph responded, Far be it from me that I should act in this way. He who stole the cup, he will be my servant. But you may go away free to your father. Then Judah, approaching closer, said confidently, I beg you, my lord, let your servant speak a word in your ears, and do not be angry with your servant. For you are next to Pharaoh. My lord, you questioned your servants before, Do you have a father or a brother? And we answered you, My lord, there is our father, an old man, and a young boy, who was born in his old age. His brother of the same womb has died, and he alone is left to his mother and father, who truly love him tenderly. And you said to your servants, Bring him to me, and I will set my eyes on him. We suggested to my lord, The boy is not able to leave his father, for if he sends him away, he will die. And you said to your servants, Unless your youngest brother arrives with you, you will not see my face any more. Therefore, when we had gone up to your servant our father, we explained to him all that my lord had spoken. And our father said, Return and buy us a little wheat. And we said to him, We cannot go. If our youngest brother descends with us, we will set out together. Otherwise, in his absence, we do not dare to see the face of the man. To which he responded, You know that my wife conceived twice by me. One went out, and you said a beast devoured him. And since then, he has not appeared. If you take this one also, and anything happens to him on the way, you will lead my gray hairs down with grief to the grave. Therefore, if I would have gone to your servant, our father, with the boy not present, though his life depends upon the life of him. And if he were to see that he is not with us, he would die, and your servants will lead his gray hairs down with sorrow to the grave. Let me be your very own servant, for I accepted this one into my trust, and I promised, saying, Unless I lead him back, I will be guilty of a sin against my father for all time. And so I, your servant, will remain in place of the boy, in ministry to my lord, and then let the boy go up with his brothers. For I cannot return to my father without the boy, lest I appear as a witness to the calamity that will oppress my father. Job 35:36. After this, Elihu again spoke in this way. Does it seem right to you in your thoughts, that you should say, I am more just than God? For you said, having done what is right does not please you, and how will it benefit you if I sin? And so, I will respond to your words, and to your friends who are with you. Look up towards heaven and consider, also, think about the sky, which is higher than you. If you sin, how will it hurt him? And if your iniquities are multiplied, what will you do against him? Furthermore, if you act justly, what will you give him, or what will he receive from your hand? Your impiety may hurt a man who is like you, though your justice may help the son of the man. Because of the multitude of false accusers they will cry out, and they will lament because of the strong arm of the tyrants. Yet he has not said, Where is God, who made me, who has given songs in the night? Who teaches us in addition to the beasts of the earth, and who educates us along with the birds of the air? There they will cry, and he will not heed them, because of the arrogance of the wicked. Therefore, God does not hear in vain, and the Almighty will look into each and every case. And so, when you say, He does not examine, be judged before Him, but wait for Him. For, at the present time, He does not bring forth His fury, nor does He punish sin exceedingly. Therefore, Job has opened his mouth in vain and has multiplied words without knowledge. Continuing in a similar manner, Elihu had this to say. Bear with me for a little while and I will show you, for I have still more to say in favor of God. I will review my knowledge from the beginning, and I will prove my Maker to be just. For truly my words are without any falsehood and perfect knowledge will be proven to you. God does not abandon the powerful, for He Himself is also powerful. But He does not save the impious, though He grants judgment to the poor. He will not take His eyes away from the just, and He continually establishes kings on their throne, and they are exalted. And if they are in captivity, or are bound with the chains of poverty, He will reveal to them their works, as well as their sinfulness, in that they were violent. Likewise, He will open their ears to His correction, and He will speak to them, so that they may return from iniquity. If they listen and obey, they will fill their days with goodness, and complete their years in glory. But if they will not listen, they will pass away by the sword and will be consumed by foolishness. The false and the crafty provoke the wrath of God, yet they do not cry out to Him when they are chained. Their soul will die in a storm, and their life, among the unmanly. He will rescue the poor from his anguish, and He will open His ear during tribulation. Therefore, He will save you from the narrow mouth very widely, even though it has no foundation under it. Moreover, your respite at table will be full of fatness. Your case has been judged like that of the impious. You will withdraw your plea and your judgment. Therefore, do not let anger overwhelm you so that you oppress another, either should you allow a multitude of gifts to influence you. Lay down your greatness without distress, and put aside all of your power with courage. Do not prolong the night, even if people rise on their behalf. Be careful that you do not turn to iniquity, for, after your misery, you have begun to follow this. Behold, God is exalted in His strength, and there is no one like Him among the lawgivers. Who is able to investigate His ways? And who can say, You have done iniquity to Him? Remember that you are ignorant of His work, yet men have sung its praises. All men consider Him, and each one ponders from a distance. Behold, God is great, defeating our knowledge, the number of His years is inestimable. He carries away the drops of rain, and He sends forth showers like a raging whirlpool. They flow from the clouds that are woven above everything. If He wills it, He extends the clouds as His tent, and shines with His light from above. Likewise, He covers the oceans within His tent. For He judges the people by these things, and He gives food to a multitude of mortals. Within His hands He hides the light, and he commands it to come forth again. He announces it to his friend, for it is his possession, and he is able to reach out to it. Proverbs 4 verses 10 through 19. Listen, my son, and accept my words, so that years of life may be multiplied for you. I will demonstrate to you the way of wisdom. I will lead you along the paths of equity. When you have entered by these, your steps will not be constrained, and when running, you will have no obstacle. Take hold of discipline. Do not dismiss it. Guard it, for it is your life. Do not delight in the paths of the impious, nor permit the way of evildoers to please you. Take flight from it. Do not pass close to it. Turn away and abandon it. For they do not sleep, unless they have done evil. And their sleep is quickly taken away from them, unless they have overthrown. They eat the bread of impiety, and they drink the wine of iniquity. But the path of the just is like a shining light, it advances and increases, even to the day of completion. The way of the impious is darkened. They do not know where they may fall.